can't say that now.
Hi everyone, my name is Lisa Rosenthal and I'm joined today with my partner and co-founder of The Ultimate Client Strategy, Bruce Lipman. And Cheri Giglia is with us today with Supporting Strategies. So excited to have you join us. Welcome.
Thank you, Lisa and Bruce, for having me here today. I'm Cheri Giglia, Managing Director of Supporting Strategies, North Shore, Long Island. We provide outsourced bookkeeping, accounting, and controller level services to companies, helping them to understand their financials by giving them accurate, timely financials and insights into their cash flow and profitability.
Amazing. And we've known you for more than a few years at this point. We can speak to the excellent service you provide to the people we've introduced you to. The feedback is always wonderful. So we're glad you're here. And now that everyone knows what you do, I would love if you could share a little bit more about you, right? We know that all of our relationships are based around something, right? And sometimes connecting with people on the things we love to do is a way for them to get to know us. We already know the tagline. We know what your services are. We know you're excellent at what you do. You are no doubt subject matter expert, but what else do you love to do outside of the scope of your business?
There might be a couple of things. I think the first thing, something that I really enjoy doing is actually cooking. So it's kind of like sometimes you look in the refrigerator and you're like, what am I going to make? And then you look up some weird recipe based on those ingredients and come out with something good. It's all about creating something and then, sharing that meal with your family or friends. So that's something that I like to do. But other than that, I have been a keen gardener over the years. I like to grow the flowers from seeds, especially sunflowers. Sometimes the bunny rabbits get to them, which is a little disappointing, but there's still something to be said to grow like the giant sunflowers. They just make everyone smile.
That is fascinating to me. Flowers, gardening, food, that all makes sense. But sunflowers particularly, have you ever seen a natural sunflower field or a farmed sunflower field where it's just endless?
Yes, I've seen it in France, but I've also some of the farms out east in Long Island, when you go for their fall festivals, have fields and fields and fields of sunflowers.
Amazing. The first time I saw that was in Israel in a place called Afula. And it was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. Like for as far as the eye could see, these massive sunflower heads where they were growing. It was a managed farm, one of the companies that sold sunflowers, sunflower seeds. And it was just beautiful. Just beautiful. It's like a lavender field or in other flower fields that are just great. So do you have a particular style of cooking that you enjoy, or just the creativity of creating something?
Probably the most I've ever done is the Italian side. Previously, when I was living in London, I used to take a lot of trips overseas. Travel is another one of my big passions. And so for one summer trip, I decided I was going to go to Tuscany, and I did an Italian cooking class with one of the local chefs from London near where I live. And that's when I learned how to make, the 5-hour ragu sauce that takes forever to cook but tastes wonderful, and how to make your own focaccia from scratch. So, if I'm really feeling in the mood, it's usually a winter thing to cook all that, but I can get it done.
Amazing. Bruce, you know a little bit about Italian food.
Well, 5-hour ragu, that's like you taste that and you're having a great day. I mean, you could just sit down. With all due respect, all I need is a loaf of bread, okay, and just stand over the pot and just dip the bread in. I can do that all afternoon. Bring in another slice. Bring in another piece of Italian bread. Let me go. All right. I don't need meat. I don't need anything. Just me, the bread, and the sauce.
So Cheri, it's really interesting to me that, cooking and sharing food with people, your family and friends that you love is one of the things you enjoy most, because I know you, just from the perspective of your business, you have a significant number of very long-standing relationships, which is part of why you're so successful, right? Bringing people together and sharing with them. Do you see the correlation between the relationships you have professionally and how you build relationships personally?
I think there's always a way when you're building a relationship. There's so much you can do over Zoom, but in the end, you do need to go have a cup of coffee or tea or whatever. What tea is my passion. With the other person, you get into more conversation. You can get a deeper level or understanding with that person. And it's usually when people relax a little bit more. The notebook isn't quite out and you're actually having a direct conversation opposed to let me sit and take notes while I'm talking to you.
Right. Well, the note taking is important when you're doing discovery, right? Professionally, when you really need to understand somebody's business and, you're hearing what they're saying, what's important to them or where their pain points are, right? When you're in the discovery conversation. But like you said, getting to know somebody, being able to sit down with them. I know that you work with folks that are anywhere. They don't have to be in your location. Like you can work with anybody, any business, no matter what state they're in, right? Maybe even other countries. But what does that look like for you when you're trying to do that? What does the remote work situation look like?
Yes, I can work with any company. I am franchised, but I just can't network in those territories. But if I'm referred something, I can take business anywhere. So your question was, how to work with people on a remote basis, or as
Right,
staff or more clients are you talking
just
about?
Well, what does it look like to work in a relationship, right, with a remote client that you really can't sit down with?
Well, I think there's always things when we first start working with somebody, I've already would have had several calls with that person before they signed and became a client of mine. Discovery, needs assessment, and presenting a solution is typically 3 to 4 calls. So you get to know somebody a little bit more. The kid just had a birthday or, whatever else, had a vacation, that sort of stuff. So it's always important to remember the personal aspects a little bit of that person to take a genuine interest in what they're doing. A little bit outside of work. But when we first start working with somebody, one of the questions I always ask them is like, how do you like to work? Meaning, how do you like to communicate together? Do you prefer a phone call? Do you want a Zoom call? Do you want a text? How do we reach you that's going to work within your schedule? So that's, I think, my number one rule with like working with people is just finding out what's the best way. Recently, we're working with some doctors and like they don't sit in front of the computer. So if you need something, you got to text them because they're not going to be sitting there. So you need to find what works best for those types of people. But I think it's like there's always not to be 100% about business. Yes, you want to get done what you need to have done, but always just to make sure, how was the weekend? What'd you do? Is there something fun? Things like that. And also a lot of times I'll just tell them a silly story or anecdote about what my kids did or drove me up the wall this weekend. And usually that gets everyone laughing.
Children have a tendency to do that. They are incredibly unpredictable. So what you thought what a weekend might look like, most of the time doesn't usually look the same way.
Not only a weekend, but we were recently at a holiday brunch this past week or so, and my son took the hard-boiled egg and put it in the egg slicer, but forgot to peel it. So he broke it and it was hysterical. But at the same point, no one else could slice their eggs. He got to laugh.
That's
You
hysterical.
won't forget that.
It was a blue egg and it did break the thing, and now I bought a new one.
It'll be a memory that
Yeah.
you'll all laugh about for a long time.
Yes, and he's 12, so he should have known better. Oh well, these things happen. You got to laugh when you can.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And that's one of the things about remote work, right, with clients. And yes, no doubt, you go through an extensive discovery process before somebody actually is onboarded. But it is very interesting what's happened over the last 5 years on how we actually have been able to build and maintain relationships over Zoom, just like this. That, I'm sorry, Bruce is always that in-person person. So this was a real challenge for him.
Oh, no, I was just going to say in terms of, being remote and working with clients, it's not just about, getting on the phone call. Sometimes we share some personal stories. Obviously, we're getting some work done, going back and forth. When we work with clients, I introduce them. I don't do the work myself. I introduce them to the ops team. And it's really important to have the smooth transition, but also to kind of brief the people like all the stuff that I already learned. Don't have that person repeat what you said. Obviously, they're going to go through a little bit of it, but not to have them repeat. But also a lot of things that I do with my clients and a lot of relationships that I have is like, if a client's come on board, and I'm known for this, I'll send them a Sugar Wish, which is a gift where they can choose whether they want candy or cookies or popcorn or whatever, or now they've, branded into plants and other things, but it's just a little gesture to say, hey, thanks for coming to become my client and I look forward to working with you. I know somebody who I once sent them that and they got a peace plant and they like always talk about their peace plant every time they talk to me. So I think it's just a way of making a gesture. It's not just necessarily on Zoom, but there's stuff that happens outside of Zoom.
100%. 100%. And I'm very blessed that I've been the recipient of one of those. And I have a plant that I've chosen, and each year I get a new plant. So when they bloom, when they flower, when they grow, I think of you all the time. So
See, it's working.
absolutely. So
But I
Cheri,
think another one of the great thing about that gift that I do give, some people don't want a gift for themselves, but they can always donate it to Make-A-Wish Foundation. So if they're the type of person that I don't need a gift or would prefer not to accept one, but they can always gift it on to someone else. And it's also giving to somebody else is also a great thing. People think of you that way too.
yes, it's an option that you're allowing them to give to something that maybe they wouldn't have otherwise.
Exactly.
Yeah, awesome. So what is the thing that drives you about your business? What's your why?
Why? A few whys. I think there's a couple of things, but I think most often it's like when you're working with a client, the biggest thing is, I need to find out what is their ideal. And their ideal of their bookkeeping or their financials is probably they're not talking to me because they have the ideal. They're looking for the ideal. And I look at the whole picture. It's, what is that person saying that they need? Sometimes they don't 100% know what they need. So helping them to interpret what they need, looking at what technology they have, maybe what technology they should have, and then looking at giving them the appropriate resource to do the work, and then also work with them in a way that is conducive for them. But at the end of the day, we want to create a set of financial statements and information that's going to allow that client to make better decisions for their business. So, so if they were looking at their financial statements and say they were working with an executive coach, they could get the work done that they need to do because they have the information they need, or they could give the information to their CPA and their CPA can do their tax return, but can also give them the advice that they need, or they could make tactical decisions about their business, like should we hire more staff? Should I do a marketing program? Do we have the funds to purchase more equipment? So when the clients get the information they need without it being a hassle, or it's automatically there for them and they can make better decisions and it helps their business grow, that's my why, because I want them to grow. I want to help them grow, and then they see the value in what we're doing for them.
That value and what you provide and what you just expressed, that's life-changing for people. And for their businesses to thrive and have accurate information, that affects their quality of life, their bottom line. So it's a great why.
Well, I think also a lot of people that work with bookkeepers or before they work with professional bookkeeping firms, they're not used to what it should be like. And, either like they've got 5 people doing the job of one person, or they're doing it themselves on the weekend. And once they actually get the information, it's not about the struggle to get the information. It's more about, well, here's the information. Now I can make decisions. And so like they're really spending their time that they've allocated to look at the financials for the business wiser and make better decisions. And I think everyone wins at that point.
Absolutely. Bruce, did you have a thought about that? You're always interested.
I was thinking, because I know Cheri for a long time, and I know she lived in Europe, and it's quite a history. But I'm curious, what road did you take to get to where you are today? What drove you to be supporting strategies of North Shore, Long Island?
I think what first started out, like what is my, why did I do this? Many, many years ago, and we'll say when I was a teenager, and I won't give off how old I am today, but I started to work with my dad. My dad was a CFO. He worked for a local company here on Long Island. And every summer he didn't want me sitting on the beach. I mean, I did some of that, but he had me work with him there. So I would do accounts payable one summer, accounts receivable, I was in the buying department helping or assisting, but I think that the first summer I was there, and this is before the internet, they used to make the circulars. It was a wholesale food distribution. And so I learned how to develop film by taking pictures of the ads and putting it together in the Heidelberg press. So like I got to see everything of, I was even the receptionist for a point in time. I got to see the whole business, and like that kind of piqued my mind. I was like, well, that's what the bookkeeping is. And, I understood what my father did as the chief financial officer. And so from there, I was like, well, when I got to decide what I wanted to do for college, I decided I wanted to study accounting. That road led me in a few different directions. As you said, Bruce, I actually have two professional qualifications. I am a CPA, but I'm also British, it's just my fun fact. And I'm also a chartered accountant from England and Wales. When I left England after being the chief finance director, sorry, the title, of various venture-backed tech companies, and I came back to the States with one kid and one kid on the way, I kind of decided I didn't want to work in corporate America because I wanted to control my own destiny. And I worked with a franchise broker and found something that aligned with my knowledge, which is all about financial statements and being a finance director and a CFO, and channeled it into this bookkeeping franchise. And I will be celebrating my 10th anniversary this summer. And I look back, I'm very happy about that. And I look back on that and I'm like, it's been a long journey and many steps along the way. I never thought I would own a company or, here we are 10 years. And I've just actually renewed my franchise for another 10 years.
That's a great story. I'm always interested in how people get to where they are. We always take a lot of roads to where we're going to go. And that's a great story. You found the passion.
Yes. I actually do like the numbers. When I look at a set of financial statements, to me, they tell me a story. It might be like, oh, well, they're having trouble with inventory or the collections are off or whatever it is, but there's always a story. You really need to understand financials to be able to tell that story, but you want to be able to share that story with the clients so that then they can act on it.
Numbers tell a story. Yeah.
They do.
Very true.
Cheri, how many folks do you have that work for you at this point? 10 years in. I know it's not just you.
No, it is not just me. We're currently a team of 12 people.
Amazing.
And everyone works remote. I'm the only one here that's technically on Long Island. But they're across, Texas, Carolinas, Florida. We truly use the technology to our advantage, and so that we don't really need to be here on Long Island. But we've been, just to clarify, but we've been 100% remote or virtual for the past 10 years. It's not just since the pandemic.
So when the pandemic happened, you were already structured and functioning and operating, right?
Yes, we were very well set up in order to just step in and do the bookkeeping. I think during the pandemic, there was a little bit more of a learning curve on our client side, and how all those things, the people that didn't used to use e-payments, now all of a sudden using them. So it was more of an education of people who are coming to us.
Amazing. This has been great. Do you have anything else you'd like to share with the folks listening? Maybe how to find you. We're going to share your contact information that you've shared with us, but maybe you want to share it now.
The best way to reach me is either by email or by phone. My direct business line is 631-230-5570. You can always locate me via our website, Supporting Strategies, and look at the North Shore Long Island page. But my direct email is cgiglia@supportingstrategies.com.
Wonderful. This has been a lot of fun. I got to know a little bit more about you, and I've known you for a long time, so that's great. And thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Lisa and Bruce.